Oye Mi Gente, YERRRR. Dímelo, mi gente. Welcome back to the fourth season of Oye Mi Gente podcast. Thank you so much for sticking with us and tuning in. This is Viv Moran. I'm a multimedia artist from South Jamaica, Queens. Currently, I'm working on a new online store for my art. For more information, you can follow me on Instagram at Black Flowers Grow. At this moment, I would like to start us off with our daily affirmation. I want to invite you all, my beautiful gods and goddesses, and everyone in between who tune in every week. And if this is your first time listening, welcome. I invite you to join in as well. Affirmation. Everything I am going through is making me stronger, wiser, and more compassionate person. I trust that everything in my life is unfolding perfectly. Now that we have charged our inner spirit crystals, let's get into today's conversation con mi chochera, dancer extraordinaire, Manny Fernandez. Manny Fernandez, originally from Lima, Peru, is a dancer, director, and choreographer. An activist who researches, illustrates, and creates Afro Peruvian art. He has worked with many companies such as Lakai Dance Theater, Benkadi Drum and Dance, and Ballet Russes. He has done most of his training in Boston at the Roxbury Center for Performing Arts, the Dance Complex, and has traveled to Peru to train in Afro Peruvian dance. Being involved in the diaspora dance community for 10 years has inspired him to bring more awareness of Afro Peruvian culture. He currently works with an eclectic group of artists and educators dedicated to performing, teaching, and researching Afro Peruvian dance and musical forms. Manny, how are you?
Hey, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you feeling?
I'm good. I'm excited and I'm nervous. I've never done one of these before.
Oh, well, it's nice to pop that cherry.
It sure is. Hello.
How's your spirit?
I love it. I love it. I love it. Yo, me and you, we're like the same people. I
Yeah.
swear.
How's your spirit?
My spirit is good. I'm excited. I feel good.
Good, good. To start the interview, I would like to offer you to take a deep breath with me. This interview may get a bit heavy, and I want to make sure that I'm able to hold space for those feelings as well. Ready? Take a deep breath. Okay, let's start. Let's talk about the land of ceviche, lomo saltado, y pollo a la brasa. Tell me about your parents. What were their lives before migrating to the US?
So both of my parents were very hardworking individuals. My father was a professional dancer and he also was a car salesman and he worked at a restaurant as well as a waiter. So he would work at the restaurant during the day, or he would do his car sales stuff, and then in the night he would gig it.
Like most of our
Oh, and my
parents.
mother,
Like most of our parents,
right,
that
exactly,
nightlife.
right,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
yes, they be acting like they forget, but they know.
Yeah. Yeah. ¿Y tu mami?
Yeah, and then my mother, right, and then my mother, she basically dedicated her time to raising me, and then she would so my mother was a like a street food vendor. In Peru they call them ambulantes.
Mm-hmm.
So she would my mom would sell anticuchos like right in front of my house. And like that's
Mm.
how she would like make a little bit of extra income. Yeah.
Yo, those anticuchos from the ambulantes. Oh my God.
Listen,
Oh
don't
my
sleep.
God. Yo, I feel like the best way to experience Peruvian food is to go to the hood spots, the ambulantes, the mom and pops. Because you go to these like fancy smancy places that are like, oh no, we're like Peruvian fusion, que sé yo que, like, nah, you gotta go to Doña Pancha and get that causa and get those anticuchos and the salchipapa.
Right, like fuck all that. I want some street food. Okay, listen, when I go to Peru, all I want is street food, and my family be looking at me like, "You American? Like, what you
Yeah,
know about street
I
food?" I'm like, "Listen,
chusma.
I live for this." Okay.
Yeah. They be looking at you like all like pituca and shit, like, uy, chusma, no.
Right, like they think that I'm finna act mad bougie, like just because we come from the states. I'm like,
Nah.
no, I'm like one of the least bougie people ever, actually.
Yeah. There's a story behind every decision to migrate. For most Peruvians, it was the decline in economy and terrorism. What was their motivation for migrating?
We were very blessed to have a roof over our heads, but the economy back then was a serious issue. Um, so my father really wanted to come to the States to be able to provide a better life for his family and for himself. He was tired of struggling and living that broke, struggled life. Like he truly felt like coming here will change his life.
Mm. ¿Y tu mami?
My mother, she wanted to come here because she wanted to be with her family. Because we already had some family members here. So she wanted to come here to be with them and to be able to have a better life as well.
Okay. So, what was their motivation for migrating besides economy and family?
So we grew up in a very rough neighborhood. Well, the neighborhood. Well, I didn't. I guess I didn't really grow up there because we left when I was like 5. But my parents grew up in that neighborhood most of their lives, and it was a
Which one?
very rough neighborhood back then. So we lived in La Victoria, La Rica
Ah,
Vicky.
la
Hey,
Vicky.
right. Like I have La Victoria tattooed on myself.
Oh,
It
nice.
reminds me of where I came from.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's dope.
Never forget where you come from.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, at that time, there was a lot of drugs, a lot of prostitution, and just a lot of violence. And my parents really didn't want to raise me there, and they wanted something better. Like they were done with that. So they literally like left because it was just really rough. It got to a point where it was really unsafe to be there. So that's why we came here. That was their biggest motivation, honestly, was like just like the how it was like growing up there. They just didn't want to be a part of that lifestyle anymore.
Mm. What were their hopes for their new life here?
Their hopes were for to be able to like every Latino family when they first come here, they want to be able to get good jobs and they want to be able to buy a home and they want to see their kids go through college and get a good education and a good job to be able to make good money. Um, I would say that's what they were hoping for.
Mm. What was the most difficult part about coming here?
Um, I would say financially, we were very blessed to have enough money to be able to pay for rent and have food and for them to be able to get me clothes. But I would say that there was a lot of things that we could not do because of money. There was a
Mm-hmm.
lot of things that they couldn't provide for me because of money. So I would say that was difficult because there was a lot of things that I wanted to do growing up that I wasn't able to. Like I wanted to take dance classes, I wanted to do ballet and tap and jazz and all these things, dance classes are very expensive, so like they weren't able to provide that for me. So that's one example of one of the things that they were not able to do because of finances. But they tried their best. Unfortunately, we couldn't afford a lot of things. We couldn't afford to get a house. But we were very blessed to still be able to have food, at least for rent and for food,
Yeah.
which is very important.
From a kid's point of view, sometimes we don't share the same realities as our parents. What was your experience?
If I'm honest,
Be completely
being brought
honest.
up in being brought up in America by Hispanic parents was very difficult for me. Extremely difficult. You have society telling you what's acceptable, right? So you have everyone outside telling you what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, and then you have your parents telling you what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, and it's like two completely different things. At school you're being taught one thing, and then your parents are telling you another thing. You know, um, at school they tell you it's not okay to hit your kids, but like back home, like you're getting beaten by your parents all the time because that's just the culture, like that's just how they grew up. So like stuff like that, that was really, it was really hard for me. It was till this day, like, me and my mom don't see eye to eye on a lot of things because a lot of it has to do from the influence that I had here, and kind of like what I was taught here, and then what they were taught back home. So it was always kind of like simple, like ese choque, like we
Hmm.
always like bumping heads because it's just kind of like we never can see eye to eye because like I'm a child who lives in America being raised by Hispanic parents who have a completely different mindset. And that for me was very hard. Very hard. Almost suffocating in a way, like, why don't you understand me? But like now that I'm older, it's like I understand, like, it's tradition, it's culture, it's like you were raised a certain type of way that's differently, and although those that way may not be okay, that's still just the way that you were brought up. And I really try to like, you know, help them to see my point of view and why I see things differently. And that's literally all we can do is just like have conversations, and not be afraid to have conversations that make us feel a little uncomfortable at times.
Hmm.
So we can come to like that ground space.
Can you think of a time when you felt unwelcome as an immigrant? What about when you felt welcomed?
Wow. I felt unwelcomed many times, a lot of times actually. And to give an example, because I'm so open about talking about this. So, I've been discriminated a lot because of like what my immigration status was at a point in my life, at a season in my life. For a very long time. Um, because of my immigration status, I was not able to go to school. I was not able to have a good paying job. Like I was turned down by a lot of universities because I didn't know anything about my immigration status. At like fresh out of college, like I didn't even know what it meant to be undocumented
Mm,
because my there was something that my parents just kept from me. Like I knew nothing about it. I was ignorant to the subject. I didn't even know like that's what I was until I started getting turned down from colleges. I started getting turned down from jobs. People started treating me differently, and you know, till this day, I've been discriminated against, and people have said racial terms towards me at like the train station.
mm.
So it's just that's the kind of stuff that I had to deal with, and it's fucked up. Yes, really fucked up. But that stuff really just pushes me to like be proud of who I am and embrace it and rub it in everyone's face.
What about when you have been welcomed?
When I have been welcomed, it's been um amazing. Uh and that's kind of like where the dance community comes in play, especially the African diasporic dance community. In Boston, like Afro Peruvian thing was never like it's not really a thing. Um, so I got heavily immersed with the African dance community, the traditional West African dance community, and that kind of like it was like a community for me. It was like okay, people that like love to dance and are connected to their roots and their culture and like the drumming, and it was the most beautiful thing in the whole entire world. Until this day, I have a relationship with all my African dance teachers. They have truly been an inspiration on my life. And if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here today. And I thank them so much for welcoming me and accepting me into their communities with open hands, introducing me to their culture, their dances, their foods, their songs, their language. I'm forever grateful. I'm forever grateful, and words can't describe how grateful I am for that.
Tell me about a time when the lack of representation hurt you the most.
Um, I went to an event. One of my friends does a yearly event, like a dance workshop. It's called Russes Dance Festival, um, and it's an African diaspora dance festival. Um, and they had everything. So they had West African, they had Afro Cuban, they had Afro beats, they had bomba from Puerto Rico, they had they had tap, like they had jazz, like they had like a whole bunch of different African diasporic dances. They had Afro Brazilian, um, but there was no Afro Peruvian,
Mm,
and that broke me because like I have like a love and a passion for Afro Peruvian music and dance. So not being to see, not being able to see anyone represent my culture to me was like where the Afro Peruvians at, and that's something that I go through all the time when I go to African diasporic events, not just in Boston, but like in New York or in New Jersey. Like I've like there's always missing Afro Peruvian. I'm just like my people are so dope. Like I just
yeah.
want to see them up there.
I think what
Like
happens
they're
is
we're so
that
dope.
with even with Peruvians, what people know about Peru is just, like the Incas, los Cholitos, and everyone else. But when it comes to like black Peruvians, it's like almost they don't exist. And even with, like even at work, like one time I went to work with braids and my coworker was like, why are you wearing braids? You're not black. And I looked at him like, I'm Afro Peruvian. They're like, there's black people in Peru. I'm like, yeah, there's like black people in a lot of South American countries.
Right,
Like we're
right, right,
not,
right.
Peruvians don't just look one way. We're like a huge cauldron of different features. There's Japanese Peruvians, los indigenous Peruvians, los blanquito Peruvians, who basically a lot of them look white. And then there's Afro indigenous, where it's people who have my features, because even a lot of Peruvians don't even believe that I'm Peruvian. So it's a struggle. It's a struggle for representation, for a full scope of representation for Peruvian people. I like to believe that from the lack of representation, it has pushed us more and more to become our own storytellers. What inspired you to choose dance as a form of storytelling?
I feel like the lack of representation is really what has pushed me to just tell my own story. Um, I don't, you don't, it's not every day that you meet an artist who's doing this,
Mm-hmm.
who's, it's not every day who you find an artist who is passionate about Afro Peruvian culture and wants to bring it in the forefront and wants to um, really bring awareness to other people. Um, so not being able to see that, like not being able to like have a lot of like know a lot of artists who truly have a passion for this is what has basically pushed me to not be afraid to do it, to not be afraid to be like the only one, to not be afraid that it's something that people are going to question and people are going to be like, Afro Peruvian, like, what is that? Or, like, I've never heard of that until I met you. Like, and that's literally like what I hear all the time. And that's really what has pushed me to tell my own stories. Also, my friends are the ones that push me to tell my own stories. I didn't even want to start uploading dance videos if it wasn't for Margie. Margie was the one like, you need to like just start uploading content and put it out there because we need this and this is just what people are asking for and you need to do it if you truly have a heart and a passion for it. Like this is your calling, so you should do it.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
if it wasn't
yeah, like I totally get exactly, where she's coming from because I feel that not being able to see ourselves, fully represented, not just in the media, but in everyday life, rather if it's like different types of artists, singers, rappers, dancers, painters, and not seeing ourselves, does things to us. It creates trauma and insecurities, and we start to question our own identities, and in full scope it, in a way where it like creates like these little bad things, it creates doorways for us to take that leap and become those first people to be like, hey, hello, we exist, we're here, you know.
facts, 100%. And and obviously like my father has inspired me to do this as well because like I get a lot of my stage presence from him because when he would dance, like he would also have like that charisma and like that happiness and that joy when he would perform. And he was able to transmit like what his body was feeling. So like I get that from him as well. So that my father is also an inspiration of why I dance today.
And how did your father feel, when you told him, like, yeah, I'm about to do this shit? I'm about to bring, Afro Latinidad dances, to the media.
Well, unfortunately, when it comes to I know you know where this is going.
Art, when it comes to art.
Yeah, they don't get it. And it's hard, especially my father being an artist. Like, it's like, why is it that you don't get it? And he's. I'm just being honest. Like, he was just not very supportive with my creativity, and my mother was definitely not supportive of my creativity. She's at a place now where she's I wouldn't say accepting of it, but kind of like tolerates it. Like, okay, like this is who you are and what you do. Like, okay. Um, but when it comes to my father, it's always been kind of like, just do you. Like my father has always been the type to just like just do you. Like it's never been like, oh my gosh, Miko, like I'm so proud of you. Like keep doing it for the culture. And it's been like, oh cool, you do that? Dope. Okay. Like it's been kind of like that. He's always just let me do my thing.
Mm, okay. Yeah, I kind of feel like we're not taught how important the arts are because there, to them, there's no like real value porque no puedes hacer dinero in, or any real money, in being any type of artist. And the only way that you can succeed is teniendo una educación profesional and becoming un doctor, un ingeniero, because engineering is very big in Peru. So, so you have to have your professional career to be somebody, and being creative and being an artist is a life of struggle. And like our parents came here to the US not to struggle, not for you to struggle, but for you to succeed y hacerte tu dinero y comprarte tu casita, and like I totally get it on both sides, like why even my own parents weren't as supportive. And it took me a while to like forgive, because now like I understand, and I understand where they're coming from, because obviously fear and struggle teaches you to not be accepting of anything that is different, because even in our own countries you're constantly being chastised, like and Connie said something that really stuck out to me. There's a saying that goes, el peor enemigo de un peruano es otro peruano. And with that, I feel like there's always going to be a constant of one upping our fellow Peruanos. We gotta be better than the next Peruano. We gotta be this, we gotta be that, porque, our parents le gustan um, comparing. Oh, pero tú sabes el hijo de fulanita. Ella se casó con un profesional y él es un doctor y ella es una ingeniera. Like, that's what they want to do. And, ¿y qué es lo que tu hijo hace? Oh, mi hijo, él baila. Él baila. ¿Pero baila qué? Baila. So it's like, there's nothing for them to be all like, almost proud of how much money our kid is making. Because the more money your kid makes, the more impressive of a life that they're living.
And that's on period.
Yo.
That's facts. And if I'm honest, like I would have to say my mom telling me my whole life that my creativity was a waste of time was one of the biggest traumas of my life.
Yeah.
One of the biggest traumas. The fact that my mother cannot support me for doing something that I loved, like that to me was like devastating.
Yeah.
Like to me, it was like, how can you do such a thing to your kid? It was like my dreams was just crashed and shattered and put away, and nobody cared about them. Like that's what that felt like. But now that I'm older, I understand like where they were coming from.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, I still do my shit. Like I go to work during the day, and I do my dancing in the nighttime, and I'm still creating. But I really had to learn how to stop seeking parental approval.
Mm.
And
That
I just learned
parental
about that this year.
approval. Oof.
Listen,
Oof. Yeah. Yeah.
I finally got through that this year.
Congratulations.
Like, thank you. Thank you.
Because that's a
I
journey.
had to just learn. It is. It is. Big facts.
Yeah, I feel like even like with myself, like, I've been doing art since before I learned to speak English. Because, I migrated here in like 1991. I was like 4 years old. Obviously, I didn't know how to speak English. So the one thing that I did was paint in my pre-K class. Because in Peru, I was already in like kindergarten, ready to go to the first grade. But here it's like, you're a little too young. They go by how old you are and what year you were born. So I had to start pre-K. I didn't know the language, and all I did was paint. I was an avid painter, and I've been painting for like such a long time. To even when I got to like junior high school, that's what I picked. Because in junior high school, you had, you could either be in the ACE program, which is you're taking nothing but AP classes, or be in the middle program, which was you got your AP classes, but you also had your creative classes, which is like art and music and chorus. So I was like in the middle program. I had like my AP, but I had art. And my teacher, she would often, push me to use different materials because my material of choice was acrylics. But she was like, no, start working with chalk, start working with pastel. And I did this beautiful still life using pastel. And we had like an art show, and that really put like me pone las pilas to develop this portfolio. And my dad, he was a creative person as well. He did show some support, like, oh no, you can do, you're going to school for this. Like, if this is what you want to do, go do it. But when it came time to like audition for the school program in high school, we had to like audition for the programs that we wanted to get into. It was just, he would take me there, but then it was like, you could do this as a hobby, but you're gonna go to engineering school so you can have a career and make some real money. And so half my background is in like computer engineering. But ask me if I remember any of that shit.
Yeah, no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
No, but that's crazy though. Like, like I really wish that my father would have, when it came to my creativity, like been like actually gone to my shows and fought for me to be able to pursue art, because like my mother was the one that was like, yeah, you're not finna pursue art. You not finna be a dancer. You're not going to art school. You are not doing that because there's no money. You're gonna work. You're gonna go to school, and you're gonna get a really good paying job. So like, I wish my father would have been more supportive. However, I'm grateful that he was very chill and like, do your thing, versus like, yeah, you're not doing that.
Mm, I feel you on that. That's it's
If that makes sense.
yeah, yeah. It's like little things like that that also make me grateful for my mom, because she's always like, I don't remember if she's always been, supportive, but I think my nona, my mom's mom, uh helped her with that, because my nona has always been very adamant about showing support and showing me off to, even my cousin was like, oh, nona was super proud of you. She has your pictures all over the apartment, and everyone that comes visit, she's like, people ask, oh, and who's this? And she would say, this is my oldest daughter, my oldest granddaughter, mi nieta mayor, y ella es una artista y una escritora, es todo una modelo. And I think with that language that my grandma used, because, she's always been my biggest supporter, even through my little fuck ups, that it almost kind of like helped my mom to notice me for me and not for what I'm good for. Because I feel like parents almost kind of look at kids where it's an extra paycheck added to the
Mm,
household. They don't notice them
yeah.
for their personalities or characteristics. And so now I'm like, my mom has been to a couple of my art shows, and I'm grateful. She hasn't been to all of them, but to the ones where she's like, oh my God, these are so amazing. And I'm so proud of you. That progress is what I'm grateful for.
100%. And I love that you mentioned that, because it's crazy, because sometimes it just takes years for them to finally like understand and just like see why this is so important for us. Um, 2 years ago, so it was me, Margie, and Krendi, who's another dancer from our group. We performed at SOB's club in New York City.
Mm.
with mi tío Freddy Huevito Lobaton. I love that guy. And my parents literally trooped it from Boston all the way to New York City with my older brother to go see me perform. And I don't know what I was like 23 at that time. Um, and seeing my parents there and seeing them like record me and actually like what I'm doing, to me, like that was such a big deal. I was like, yo, like I made progress with them. Like I think I made a breakthrough. I really think I made a breakthrough.
That's a
And
breakthrough.
Freddy Huevito Lobato noticed yeah, yeah. And then Freddy Huevito Lobato noticed my father because like they used to like gig it like they used to like gig in the same shows together. So like it was just like an amazing experience,
So it was
honestly.
like almost things came full circle for you. And yo,
Yes.
I know what that feels like to see, like a family member in the crowd where you're just like, yo, you here for me, dead ass. Like you really here. In some ways or another, we as immigrants and first generation children of immigrants carry certain traumas. Some generational, others are from lack of representation that oftentimes leaves us questioning our own identities. How has dance helped you heal?
I love this question. Um, so growing up, I have always struggled with my identity. Um, I didn't really have friends who were Peruvians. So I didn't really have friends who were kids of Peruvian parents, and like they were mostly Dominican, Puerto Rican, or Black American or Haitian. So I always struggled with this thing where like I never felt like I could relate to anybody,
Mm,
right? I always felt like I could never fit in. Um, I always felt like, I either wasn't Peruvian enough or I always felt like I wasn't black enough,
mm,
because like because of that misrepresentation. And this is why that's why the representation part of it is so important and so crucial for the next generation.
mm. So
We need that.
how has dance helped you heal from all that?
Uh, so dance has helped me healed in so many ways because just going through seasons of depression and identity issues and just suicidal thoughts and all these things. Dance has saved me from that. Dance has saved me from Dance gave me an identity. Like this is something I can be proud of. Like I can identify to this,
Mm.
like this art form, and embrace it and be proud of it and just be true to it and follow it. Because I really believe that this was just a calling upon my life, and I have no choice but to follow it.
Yo, I feel you on that. From La Marinera, Festejo, Landó, Tondero, Zamacueca, and Contrapunto de Zapateo, which of these is your favorite?
This is a really hard question. Um, oh my gosh, I have so many favorites. This is so hard. Damn, my all-time favorite, like my favorite style of Afro Peruvian dance would have to be Lando.
Mm,
The reason why Lando is my favorite is because it's the one that it's like Lando is like the closest to like Mother Africa.
mm-hmm,
Because there's a lot of movements in Lando, you know, being involved in the African, like the traditional West African dance communities, and just knowing Lando, like I'm able to connect the two. So like if I like watch a Lando, I'm like, yo, like they do that move in African dance class. Yo, like they, that like they do that in Senegal, or they do that in Mali, or you know what I mean, or they do that in the Ivory Coast. Like I like that move. Like I know that move, and you see it a lot in dances like samba malato. So like
Hmm.
in samba malato, they do like
Yeah.
the washing the clothes. Like that's very African. Like that's a move that I've seen in so many African dances, and as well as like just like the movement of the hips and the shoulders, like it's very 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 African. So it's like the one that's like very rooted in Mother Africa, and that's why I love Lando.
Mm. I think that if I would have to choose, I would probably have to say Lando and Festejo. Festejo for me, um, I grew up surrounded by a lot of Puerto Ricans. So when it comes to like bomba, I feel like I can identify with it so much because it's very similar to Festejo. Very similar to Festejo. And whenever I've gone out dancing or dance in like the family parties, my mom would be like, "Eres bien achorada." Like, and achorada is basically someone very hood
Hilarious.
that
Yeah.
moves too much, very, oh my God, like I feel for me it was just it always made me feel bad to be called like achorada. Um like I felt like it was like the ultimate diss for Peruvians, and so basically achorado is someone that adopta una actitud un poco desafiante. So basically, it's like not normal, out of the norm, like you're breaking rules. So when it came to like salsa, I would move too much opposed to just, doing the steps. And so for me, it was just like, that is something that I can't do. And that is why I identify so much with like bomba and festejo and lando, because it's a lot of shoulder movements and you're moving your whole body. And it's like, when I dance this, it's almost like my ancestors are coming out through me. And it's like when I feel like the most whole, it's like my body is radiating the joy my ancestors had when they would dance, when they had like their little fire pits, because a lot of these dances came from honoring, their gods, especially with that song Canto a El Egua. El Egua is, the deity of paths. Kind of like how Ganesha is to Hindus, El Egua is to Yoruba, to Ifa. And, I practice, a little bit of like Santeria, and that's what our ancestors used to practice before they had to assimilate to Christianity. And with that, and even practicing that, has made me feel more whole and coming back to my roots. And I feel like lando and festejo provide a relationship with your roots.
Yes, most definitely. It's definitely a spiritual experience.
Yeah. So if you gotta be all achorado, I'm gonna be achorada like all day. I don't care.
Yo, I love that word. I use it all the time. I be like, "Achórate, oye."
Yes, right, right. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. I love it. I love it. Yeah. And honestly, like I can relate to that because Afro Peruvian dance for me is truly a spiritual experience every single time I do it. I can be in my room, in the four walls of my room, dancing and coming up with choreography, and it's a spiritual experience because there's that connection with your roots and your ancestors, and just like knowing the history and knowing that a lot of the dances come from a place of suffering, but they were able to turn that into joy through their dance and through their art form and through their creativity. Like African people have truly left the legacy,
Yeah.
and I'm so grateful for the art form that they have given us. So I really feel like it's our duty to preserve that because it is so precious. It is a gem that needs to be preserved and it needs to be taken good care of and it needs to be shared with the whole world
Yeah,
as
I
well.
feel like in doing that and chronologically taping and writing down, archiving, it's what not only keeps our ancestors alive, but ourselves. You know, like we live forever. We can live forever through these stories, rather if it's like paintings, podcasting, writing, publishing essays, dancing, all that. What are you hoping to accomplish in the future?
Um, there's a lot of things that I'm hoping to accomplish, but when it comes to the terms of just Afro Peruvian culture in general, I hope to just I hope to bring more awareness of the culture to non-Peruvian people. I really want to see it in the forefront. Like I want it to be hip. Like how like right now Afro beats is like all on and popping,
Yeah.
or like there was a point with like Afro Brazilian dance is all on and popping, and I say it's as like bomba. Like bomba is on and popping, and like people know of it. A lot of people know of it. I want to see um, Afro Peruvian culture at that level. Like so many of like my Puerto Rican and Dominican friends and my Haitian friends, they'd be like, "Yo, like Afro Peruvian is so dope. Like I never knew about that. Like they support it. Like they support it and they love it." Um, so I'm grateful for that, and I also like like I want to be able to have my own dance company. I want to be able to, just have a group of people who are, dedicated to really preserving the culture, and I want us to perform and I want us to dance and sing and share stories and make costumes together and just really, really like do it for the culture here in the States. Like,
Yeah.
we need this. We really need more people to be passionate about this because, like, it is your culture. And I know so many young Peruvians who are very gifted and very talented, but are not really going out their way to preserve the culture. And a lot of it, I feel like it has to do with that misrepresentation. So we really need to like just fight and just do it. Honestly, like just do it. And
Facts.
that's what I want to see. And right, so like, and I really want to have a company because like I want everyone in my company to eventually like pass it on to the next generation, when we all have kids. Like, I want our kids to be in that dance company. And then when they have kids, I want their kids to be in that dance company. And I want it to be a generational thing. Just like the African dance community, like it's such a generational thing. And it's something that we really, really gotta preserve, especially because Afro Peruvian culture, we've lost so much culture throughout the years, and I kind of destroyed the culture in a way because of the misrepresentation and not really trying to preserve it. Like we kind of just like, oh, like, and I feel like a lot of it has to do with just our our parents not making that like our priority, like preserve your culture.
It's like assimilation.
However,
Assimilation
yeah,
takes priority because assimilation is also survival.
yeah. So you get it.
Yeah.
You get me.
I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah.
What
So that's what I want to see.
I like that. Yeah. What do you hope to leave for generations to come?
I hope
Hold on.
to
Hold on.
obviously,
Hold on. Let me repeat it. Let
okay,
me repeat it.
okay.
What do you hope to leave for generations to come?
Um, but like I mentioned before, like I really hope to leave a foundation So obviously, like a music and dance company, um, that really wants to do Afro Peruvian theater, and I just. My vision is like just seeing them perform in New York City and Los Angeles and like all over, traveling all over the world, just sharing the culture. That's what I hope to leave for the next generation.
Looking back, would you change anything?
I guess one thing would be that I would have told myself to not give up when things got tough.
Mm,
Um, to not give up because you feel like you're the only one. To not give up because you feel like you're not getting support or because you know people think it's corny or like stuff like that. Like I would have told myself to not think those things.
I feel you on that. All right, y'all, it's time for that One Piece. Not to be confused with the widely popular anime that we all know and love. This is that one piece of advice you would give to a younger you. So Manny, after everything, the trials and tribulations, what advice would you give to a younger you?
Wow. An advice that I would give to a younger me would be um, to be proud of who you are and to be proud of where you come from, to not be afraid um, to do what your heart desires, to not be afraid to chase your dreams, um, to be happy that you have been given an amazing talent, and to truly just like share your love and share your passion and your art with the whole world. That's the advice that I would give is follow your dreams and be true to yourself
I
and
love that.
everything else will fall into place.
I love that. Okay, guys, we've reached the end of this episode, but before I bid you all adieu, I want to pose a question to you all, mi gente. Let's keep that same energy on self reflection and introspection, but let's switch our perspective. Whether or not we're happy doing what's right, or if we are successful, it's all about perspective. We may have the world at our fingertips, yet find ourselves utterly empty. We can grow to hate our jobs simply because of one coworker whom we cannot agree with, or be devastated over dissolving relationships that have been detrimental to our well being in the first place. Sometimes we're so zoom in on various issues that when we step back or hear an outside perspective, we can view the issue in a completely different light. So, mi gente, this week, let's ask ourselves, am I employing a healthy perspective? Piénsalo. Feel free to leave your insight and answers in the comment and review sections. Bueno, guys, that's it for this week's episode. Manny, thank you so much for coming onto this podcast, for letting me interview. I feel like we have legit related on so many experience. I feel like we can start
Facts.
our little achorado group.
Let's do it. I'm with it. We need to do like a
Hashtag
hashtag
achorado.
achorado.
Thank you
Yes,
so
I'm with it.
much.
I'm with it.
I'm looking forward to seeing more dance videos come from you because, they make me feel whole. Like it definitely brings
Aw.
such a joy to my heart just seeing more people, finding, our own identities and representing, for the different types of Peruvians because, we're not just one thing, we don't all look like potatoes.
Right.
No todos
We
tenemos
sure
esa
do
cara de
not. We
papa,
sure do not.
so except for me, but
I am done with you.
all right,
Thank you for
guys.
having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Remember to follow us on Oye Mi Gente on Instagram, Oye Mi Gente Podcast. We are available on all your favorite streaming platforms. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a comment in the review section. Also, follow Deacon Media on Instagram. If you want to know more about the Deacon Media Network and what we do, you can check out the entire Deacon Media family on deaconmedia.com. Thank you, Manny. Ciao.